Hey fam, it's Gant.
And Jade.
And welcome to this week's episode of the Good Black Podcast. How are you? You look tired. Not in a bad way, but like you look like you are like.
Okay. So let's officially call this starting with the catch-up segment.
Yeah.
Okay. And you rude.
Well, no, I didn't mean it like you look exhausted. Like I just meant like you can see that, like, it's been a day, like we're tired, we're wiping our eyes, we're figuring it out.
Yeah, you're like, oh, come on into the room. You look tired. Thanks.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks, cuz.
If I can't say it, who can?
I'm good. It has been a whirlwind of things that have been going down. I don't want to say it like that. It is so interesting that I barely leave the house and yet I am still very busy. I don't understand it. How does this happen? But it's moments like that where I realize I am definitely my mother's child, because she gets into all kinds of stuff and just has such a busy life. And it's not like especially with COVID going on, it's not like she's out in these streets. And I noticed the same thing about myself. Maybe it's a pleasant coping mechanism, who knows? But we out here. So how am I doing? I'm doing okay. I am tired. I'm so glad you can see it on my face.
Well, it's not that. It's not that.
I'm playing.
I know.
But so to catch up, goodness, since the last time we recorded, my mom and her partner, her boyfriend, came to see me. So they came up here. They got their little vaccines and they hit the road, y'all. So they came up here to see me and they met my partner for the first time. And I do have his consent to talk about him. But yeah, they met my partner. They met my boyfriend. I got a boyfriend, y'all. A boyfriend or whatever. We cute or whatever. So yeah, that was really nice. And we went to a really nice place for dinner. And it was just a nice conversation. It's cute / annoying to see my mom and her boyfriend together, because he's like, I love her so much and I don't care who knows it. Don't nobody care. Don't nobody care. Gosh, shut up. But also it's cute. But yeah, had dinner with them, the four of us, one night, and then there was another morning. It was actually Easter Sunday. Oh God, it has been a while since we talked.
I know.
That I took them to a brunch. So if y'all didn't listen to the intro or trailer episode, I am right outside of the DC area. And so DC in this area in general, we are known for our brunches. Like, it is a thing. It is a vibe. It is a scene.
We love a brunch.
We love a brunch, you know? And so yeah, I found this. It was difficult because it was Easter Sunday, but I found this spot and they were doing unlimited small plates. And so that's where you sit at the table and they bring the food to you and you tell them what you want up off the menu. And I tried to explain that to my mom and her boyfriend before we went there. And I sent them the menu, like, take a look, start to get a taste, start to see what you might want to order and order. And I don't know, it didn't hit them until we got there. And the server explained it to them again, like, oh no, you can just continue to order whatever you want. And the plates are small and, we just however many times. And they were both like, wait, so we just order whatever we want on this side of the menu. We just keep asking. And after the first round, they got the hang of it. But they enjoyed that place as well. So yeah, that was a nice trip with them. I'm so glad I got to see my mom. I haven't seen her since this whole Panera bread sandwich. I haven't seen her since
Panasonic.
The panini. When did I drove down to where she is last July or August. So that was the last time I saw her in person. But what we have been doing is monthly Zoom calls, so I could see her face.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, so I think I mentioned on the podcast that I was waiting on some babies.
Yes.
to decide they wanted to come into the world so I can support their parents through that transition, aka do my doula duties. That is DOULA. I'm a
Google it.
doula. Google it. We can also have a podcast about it or whatever. Just let me know. Hit us up in the inbox. Um, so I believe I told the people that I had 5 births between mid-April and mid-May. And these babies decided to gang up on me.
Not
Uh,
not not they jumped you.
they jumped me. They jumped my schedule. So between last Wednesday and yesterday, 4 births.
Okay.
And I have one more to go next week. And so, mind you, I said this is supposed to stretch out between mid-April
Right.
and mid-May. And the baby was like, nah, cuz we coming now. And at the same time. And I said, oh, babies, wait, what? Oh. But luckily I have a really great support system. And so friends and family have been encouraging me to rest as much as I can. Other doulas and other birth workers have been so amazing and have continued to check in on me. And at one point in time had to send a backup to support a family, and then I was able to be tagged in. But yeah, the community that I'm a part of is just so amazing and so loving. And so yeah, I am tired.
Yeah.
A lot of babies, a lot of postpartum support, a lot of checking in on folks, and just the energy exchange that comes with that can can be big. I won't say it's a lot, it can be big.
Yeah.
So I plan on sitting my happy behind down for the next few days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you should.
Yeah.
You're doing the
Right.
Lord's work, or whomever you believe in, listener. You're doing their work.
Yeah.
You're doing the work of the world.
Yeah. We out
And
here.
yeah, absolutely. So shout out to you and thanks to you for helping people through that. That's a lot. And it's a significant like moment in your life, depending on where it really doesn't depend, I guess, on how many kids you've had. Like it's always a big deal to have
It's
a baby,
always a
right?
big deal to have a baby. Yeah. People always need support. Like people deserve support. And like I said, we can have a podcast episode be about that.
So yeah, in reflection, I think the last well, since we last checked in, um, I've just been like kind of doing a lot of reflection, a lot of like personal changes, and a lot of things that I'm trying to like, just kind of like trying to take a new approach to life, specifically like spirituality, and just trying to be more focused in that way, and um, and just like I don't want to say indulging myself, but I guess in a way like really really getting into like really getting into my faith and kind of like digging in deep and
Mhm.
figuring out what it means to me,
Mhm.
and just like establishing a new normal of incorporating that and not kind of like using it as like the thing like as an identifier, but really as something like the day to day. Like I get the opportunity, really that's how I look at it now, like
Mhm.
to experience daily, and to really delve into. And I feel like it's making me, I think it's changing me.
Mhm.
And I hope that continues.
Mhm.
And not in like a bad spooky weird way. Like I'm not in here like in my closet with candles burning and praying for
You're,
6 hours. It's
you're
not
not
that.
Azalea Banks.
I I am not. So yeah, definitely not that, but just really focusing on it. I think for me, I feel like I grew up in the church. Like, I've always
Mhm.
been, I always been involved in church and always like had my spiritual life, a big part of my lived experience. But I think like most kids who grew up in church, like you always felt like you would get to a certain age and then like, and then like the spirituality thing would just turn on, or you
Mm.
would eventually kind of experience faith in the way that you see your parents perform it, in the way that you
Mhm.
see like your parents experience it. And that's just not the case. Like it doesn't just turn on. Like you have to kind of decide to pursue it if that's what you want. Like, because some people
Mhm.
get older and realize like, that their faith is not something that they genuinely can believe in, they can really genuinely trust and continue to adhere to. And for me, I think I like approached it a lot from a place of like from guilt and shame.
Hmm.
And and that has not, this new experience of my own faith has been a lot about dispelling that and throwing that, like kind of throwing that thing to the side and unlearning it, and getting it, getting it out of the way, because really it truly stops you from, from the pursuit, depending on who you are and what's going on, what's going on with you, what things you feel like are, a hindrance, or, whatever the case might be, what pieces of your life you feel like disqualify you from having access to, to this, to your spiritual, self.
Yeah.
So yeah, like just exploring that, like I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Be excited about it.
And that's something that I don't think that you grow up feeling like you're supposed to feel.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff that, like, that I've been reading lately, and I haven't been reading like huge books or anything like that, but I've just been doing like just being more consistent with like devotionals and things of that nature, and finding parts for me of the Bible that is like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And and kind of getting and getting a different interpretation on that, and having a different approach to it. It can be intimidating, but because I'm a perfectionist, I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Yes.
And I want everything to be just so. But yeah, I think just being consistent and being in the space, and like, and really, like sitting in that space, learning to enjoy it, learning to actually enjoy the freedom that comes in it, of just being like, you don't have to do anything to earn this thing. It is yours. It already belongs to you. So you can't earn access in this way. You can't really earn a gift or a favor. Like, this is just something that you get to choose whether or not you operate in. Sure, absolutely. But in the choice, that's really all you have to do in order to kind of to gain that access and to enjoy. So it's been a new experience, and a good experience for me so far. And I feel like it's opened me up opened my mind in a lot of different ways that I feel like maybe I was already progressing towards naturally, but I feel like this is in a part of that, and now it can kind of be propellant to it.
Right.
So the last couple of weeks have been good. Again, new transitional. But it's been good. It's a lot of stuff. So I've just been I've just been reflecting a lot on life. And then I was having a conversation too with my partner, and she, as I've discussed on the show before, she's a nurse, and she does labor and delivery. And so she talks a lot about like the births that she's experienced, and and having conversations with new moms and like their families, and so thinking a lot about the cycle of life, and like what all of those pieces mean. And I think I'm just kind of reflecting on that, and thinking about it. Also, these buildings are getting ready to close, and everybody's getting on my nerves. So
Oh, okay. You just threw that in there at the last minute.
Yes, keeping it light.
Keeping it light. Yes. I never, like, when it came to your job, I never even thought about that. This world that we live and operate in is something else.
It really is. And it really is. And I feel, which goes, which goes back to my own journey, and just kind of like, really kind of regrounding myself in faith. Like, you really do have to kind of have something to ground yourself in, because if not, like, it's just, I mean, like, the world really, this country specifically,
yeah. And I feel I could potentially get on a soapbox about this. I'm going to try very hard not to do that in this moment. But I feel like that grinding and that wearing down and it's weathering, that is the term that can be used here. It's a tactic. It is a tactic. It is a tool of white supremacy and white supremacy culture. And it is alive and well. And everything that we are able to do to combat that, to take care of ourselves, to take care of our loved ones, is always an act of political warfare.
Yeah.
Because survival and being in and of
Yes.
itself is hard. It is hard. And so to be able to survive and take care of, and then have the nerve to thrive, that we don't make it political. They make it political, and then we ante up. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. I don't have enough energy to step all the way onto the soapbox, but y'all feel me, hopefully.
I hope it's not the soapbox, and I'm going to try to tell this quickly. So we had a conversation this week. We had a conversation this week in our staff meeting. We have a weekly staff meeting.
Wait, you allowed to talk about this?
Well, it's not about work. It'll make sense as I explain it. Okay. So we had a staff meeting this week at work. And because, like higher ed people are touchy-feely, like we are very like emotional for the most part, like not super emotional, but we are emotion. We focus on emotions. We don't kind of let them ride and like not have them. So in the really, I would say post George Floyd, we've been making more space in those areas for the Black professionals to kind of just to be and speak out, what our feelings are, and we've had a rough, not even in 8-9 days, being Black. I would say. And so there was space made in our staff meeting for that. And one of the things that I just shared to my colleagues is like, I feel like when we are losing people to the system of white supremacy, I feel like you have a responsibility to keep breathing, to keep living, to keep doing things that cultivate joy and that keep your existence about you.
Yes.
And staying whole.
Yeah.
And if you are going to swallow me, you're going to choke on my way down.
Yep.
Because I'm not going to make it easy for you. And so I really wanted to encourage my my peers and obviously fellow Black people, to like, it's okay to have your joy. It's okay to focus on that. And I posted something about it on my Instagram, like you don't have to have the press statement. You are nobody's PR, consultant. You don't have to make a statement on the most recent on the most recent murder. You don't have to be the spokesperson in that space. Just encouraging people like to stay whole. Like, if you need to turn off the TV for a couple of hours, it's okay. If you need to log off of Instagram for the day or for the next 2 days or for the next 6 weeks, whatever it is that you need in order to remain whole, do that. Like, be informed. Absolutely. Like, know the stuff, know what's going on, be able to give an answer for it, and speak for it when you feel necessary, but not for the appeasement of people who don't know any better. Not for not showing up in this space and being able to express my brokenness so that you can learn something.
Right.
I was not fully comfortable expressing in that space because I expressed this to some other people on my team. Like, I wasn't ready to talk about this. And I mean, I know that it's challenged by choice and like you don't have to share if you don't want to, but then you feel the obligation when you get into a public setting to also like put your pain on display and put your scars on display.
Yeah.
And I understand why the space was made and why it's necessary, but I didn't want it to, because I felt like at some point it's being made. I'm gonna think about this before I say it.
Okay.
But I just felt like, give me a week.
Yeah.
Give me a week. And I feel like the space is being made by people who don't always understand the experience.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so
Absolutely.
it's like, you know, I appreciate it because the intention is good, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important to recognize, like, and see the impact. Like, is it the time,
Right.
like, you know, because we've also had, because aside from these shared racial traumas,
Right.
your life is also going
Right. So
on.
let's pause that currently so that we
Yeah.
can get into the scroll, because all of this stuff is actually just built into the scroll. Uh,
Yeah.
this is a sad episode.
I didn't want it to be that way.
Should we start over? I know we've been talking for a while, but I'm like, damn, wait a minute. Going through timelines, as y'all know, I have like 3 Instagram accounts. There's a lot of chatter, a lot of different places. One of the things that I saw recently, and I feel like as a kid, this day got way more play than it gets now. Earth Day was just upon
Mm.
us. And it wasn't until I saw it on my timeline, I was like, oh, I guess that is today or yesterday or whenever it was. Um, so yeah, saw lots of postings about that. Definitely the one day a year where folks seem more conscious about things. Not to say that that's not a bad or good or, you know, anything
Mhm.
like that. Just something I observed. But one thing I did notice about Earth Day this year, and maybe it's just because of where I'm at in life, and the things that I pick up on, it seems like, or maybe even where we're at as a society, it seems like I was seeing more conversations about economic and environmental justice than I've seen in the past. And I enjoyed it. I loved it. I enjoyed seeing those
Mhm.
conversations. Um, I can't remember the term that people were using, but they're talking about how, you know, Earth Day in the past has been used to like, or Earth Day festivities and like the awareness around the environment and environmental justice in the past has been used almost like a facade, like a blinder to turn our attention away from like these large corporations and systems that are committing these harms and violations against planet Earth. And
Mm.
they're trying to put it squarely on our shoulders, like, oh, Earth Day is about reduce, reuse, recycle. And that way we'll save the planet. But there's so much more to it,
So
especially when we talk about environmental justice and the impact of the environment and where people are being either forced to live because of things like gentrification or like global warming and all of these different things that are happening around and to our planet. Like I enjoyed seeing more conversations about that and people being very real about the intersections between environmental justice and reproductive justice. And it was seemed like some really great conversations this year
mm,
on Earth Day. So yeah, that was a thing that I saw.
interesting. I don't. Hmm. I mean, I remember it. I probably saw it, but I didn't see a lot of conversation regarding that. I think just because of everything going on this past week,
Oh yeah,
I think it's gotten a little
little
lost.
buried. Also fair, because I saw that more. I saw Earth Day more on one timeline versus the other two. So I will
Mm,
say that as well, which is also
yeah.
interesting. Hmm.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
nice.
that's nice.
I
Go buy a plant or something. I don't know.
absolutely save a plant, you
Save a
know, like
plant.
take care of the our earth. We only have one.
We only have one. Oh, one of the things that I've started doing, speaking of we only have one and, you know, trying to do my part, I have started saving my food scraps or like my produce scraps um, to give to a friend because she has a compost heap. And before the pandemic, I had never even in my wildest dreams thought about composting. I still technically am not composting, but I'm contributing to someone else's. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is nice. Like this is a way for me to, I don't know, put back what I'm taking away.
Yeah.
Um, I guess the flip, well, I won't say that next part. Yeah, so that's something cool that I've been doing. And so I have these biodegradable bags that I purchase, and I bag everything up and then I take it to her, and she's able to, she didn't even have to take stuff out of the bag. She can just toss it right into a little compost heap. And she uses that because she has a garden. Um, so yeah, I think it's cool. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that is cool. I actually was I was really surprised by like how governmentally implemented recycling is in other places around the world.
Ooh, mm-hmm.
You know, so like the government actually like supports it and does things to enable it and enable and actually enforce people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
um so yes, so I lived abroad for a little while a couple years ago, and that was a big, like, you can't just throw away your egg carton in along with your paper trash. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have to recycle it, you have to sort it out, you have to have different size and colored bags for different kinds of trash.
Mm-hmm.
um so that was super interesting to see that abroad, and then also to like to then come back home where, you know, like we have all the money, we have all the things, and like if you would like to recycle, you may pay the
You
government
may
in
pay
order
the
to do
right. You can pay to
so.
get the can to do the recycling. It's like,
Yeah,
oh
we haven't recognized yet that this is probably better for us, but okay, fine.
no, because
um
I'm America.
because America.
America.
Yeah. So yes, that's really interesting that the, you know, the work kind of takes such a different approach to that. So yes, Earth Day happened, people. Do your best. Do what
Do
you
your
can to take
best.
care of this,
Yeah.
of our rock.
Do
This is
your
the only one
part.
we got.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can start small. Find something that feels good for you. Find something, I don't know. There, just Google Earth Day and what can I do or something.
Yeah.
This is horrible advice. Y'all got it. I believe in y'all.
It's really not. I mean, it's not bad advice. I think people, this is like such a foreign thing to most people
Yeah,
that they make it feel like a bigger deal than it really is, because
that's
like it really
true.
just takes for you to take a one day like change. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I really went through a period of time where we were drinking a lot of water in our house.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that we have recycling bins on campus. So like I had a trash can that was dedicated to our water bottles.
Nice.
That was where our water bottles went. So we've kind of reduced our use since then, but I likely need to go back to doing that again. But it made me feel good because I'm like, yeah, like we recycled so much stuff, and it was a confirmation like, hey, you are drinking water, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that's a good thing.
Although I guess the plastic, but then again, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
not not
High
great, but
five.
again, I was
High
recycling
five. Right. High five.
it. Yes, I did
Okay.
something. So absolutely. So I feel like the next topic is kind of you, like, you know,
It
I don't want
is. I mean, it's
to
gonna be
race.
real quick. It's gonna be real quick. So all and reproductive justice land slash like my repro pages. Um Today is Vagina Appreciation Day.
There we are.
Go get yours appreciated or whatever that looks like for you. um
That's right.
tee.
We appreciate vagina.
Appreciate the vaginas. Keep in mind, folks, that the vagina is actually the canal that is internal. The vulva is what you see on the outside.
There you go.
Vag facts with Jade. There you go.
That's
um,
hilarious.
this week
Like it.
was
Hashtag it.
hashtag it. This week it was also National Infertility Awareness Week. And so put this into the scroll just because this is all over my doula page timeline. This is a conversation that we don't have enough of. There are a lot of people, a lot of couples who experience infertility or fertility issues and possibly need support and assistance when it comes to their reproductive journeys. And so this week is dedicated to getting more of that awareness out there, getting more of just the messaging that it is common. And, you know, secondary infertility, which is where you might already have a child or two that you've brought into this world, and you are finding it hard to conceive, or you're having issues with your fertility for subsequent children. Like, that is a thing. And so the changing the narrative, opening up space for conversation so that people can continue to talk. Because one of the things about infertility, and sometimes just reproduction or reproductive topics in general, is because we don't talk about them enough, because there's not a bunch of education flying around, people feel really isolated, people feel ashamed. And we want to bring these conversations to light so that you'll know that you're not alone. There is support, there is education. And yeah, it is actually more common than people think. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
shout
it.
out, talk about it. Like with most things, like, you know, they only fester and get worse in the dark and become, you know, become things that you then can't control, and they become such a big issue. But talking about it
Mhm.
hopefully can help people feel comfortable and confident to have conversations out loud and in public and be seen and get some support too.
Yep.
All right. So next up on the docket is not a super joyous topic. I think we've been seeing a lot of conversation this week specifically around Black trauma and violence committed against us. I think there's been that conversation on obviously the real world end of, you know, situations like what just happened this week with Ma'Khia Bryant, as well as, like, you know, the verdict for George Floyd, and last week Daunte Wright.
Well,
Um,
George Floyd was not the one on trial.
You know, he was not. I'm sorry.
No.
That's why I said the verdict concerning the case
Oh, I didn't hear that part.
around
Okay.
um
Well, for everyone else out there, he was
Derek
not on
Chauvin,
trial.
who is a murderer and ugly, um, because insult to injury. So yes, so just having conversations around that, because I think, again, we've been having that conversation regarding the real life space of what's been going on again in the news, just, you know, just the constant barrage of, you know, like, of being able to see Black people be harmed in all spaces, right, from, you know, from all aspects, but specifically like government sanctioned violence against Black bodies in the real world. And then also, I think there's been a really interesting conversation around what Lena Waithe is putting into the world via her powers as a producer. So big conversation with her has been her most recent project, Them, which I think is on Amazon Prime.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
So well, I haven't seen it, so don't I haven't watched it because I don't, you know, I don't pay people to scare me. Um
It's a nice way to
just
put that. That's an interesting way to put that. So you
yeah, no,
didn't
I
see
don't.
us and we and everybody else
Well,
and all them?
I did not see Us, but it is not for a lack of desire to see it. It just,
Ah,
I'm not a movie person, and it kind of like the time came, it's like, oh, I'm going to see it, I'm going to see it, I'm going to see it. And then my partner was was in Cleveland at the time, so there was also push for me to go to the movies and see it. So it's like,
mhm.
it just kind of went by.
Got it.
But yes, but Them is let me get
Yeah.
an actual Google description.
Cool. While you do that, I'll kill time. So when I first saw them pop up on like the promos and everything else, I said, "Oh, does Jordan Peele have another thing? Is he just going through all the pronouns and stuff?" I didn't
Mhm.
know. And then at some point in time, I started hearing about what it was about. And I said, okay, this is one of those things where I need to be in the mood to see this. So far, the mood has not struck me. Um, it also kind of sounded like it was like Lovecraft country. And I'm like, I don't need
Mm.
to, well, you did that already. Also, news to me that Lena Waithe was behind it. Is this enough space filling time for you?
Yeah, so I'm just
Okay.
looking at a couple of
Okay.
different things.
I'm keeping that in
So
the podcast.
yes, we can absolutely keep that in. So there's a couple of different descriptions. So the first one on Google says a Black family moves from North Carolina to an all-white Los Angeles neighborhood in 1953, where the idyllic home becomes ground zero for malevolent forces.
Like ghosts?
From what I have heard, there's a mixture of supernatural forces as well as real life ones.
This sounds like Lovecraft Country. How is this different?
So I think
Does it say that in the article?
because I've seen bits of Lovecraft Country, and no, no, I don't
That's
think
a
there's
good
a lot of
show. Like
yeah,
that
I
gives
don't think
you
I've seen a lot of comparisons.
okay. I mean, it like based on what you just read, that sounds just like Lovecraft Country because you got the racism of the 50s/60s plus all the
Yeah.
ghosties and ghoulies and monsters and stuff. How is that different?
Well, I think that
Somebody write into the podcast and tell me how it's different. How is it
well,
different?
listen, the first thing that I see here is them is despicable and should be removed from streaming services.
Oh, is that someone's review?
It is an opinion piece.
Oh,
And
is it
boy,
from a
do
white
they have
person? Is it from a white person?
Oh, you know what? That's a valid thing to bring up. But I'm not sure. I cannot discern from the name or
Okay.
any other information the ethnicity or race of this person. But what I will say is that a lot of the feedback that I have gotten from Black people who I would say are analysts and not just watchers for enjoyment, they don't enjoy it either.
Oh, okay.
So Black people have some Black people have found it super difficult to watch because and the chief complaint that I've heard is that it's just like it's unnecessary violence against Black bodies that is just it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
In short, and it's characterized as a drama via Amazon. So
I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I definitely think that there are some. I mean, I'm sure that there are some moments of like satisfaction for specifically for a Black viewer or any viewer who's able to empathize with, I guess, the main characters of the piece
Of the them.
Of the them. Yeah. So there's definitely some moments, I guess, of like kind of satisfaction where you get that that come up and that you need in the moment. There was a clip that went viral, I think on TikTok, either TikTok or Instagram, I can't remember where I saw it, of a white woman disrespecting this Black woman in front of her daughter and her promptly getting the molars slapped out of her mouth for having done so. Now, not fast enough, I would say. but and so I'm sure that's probably like that must be a feel good moment for the viewer. But I think what another piece of feedback that I'm seeing about the differentiation between what Jordan Peele creates and what Dem has been was that okay, like there is a point to every moment of violence. I'm assuming in what Jordan Peele has created, and there is a necessity to kind of like to further the story, but not at the expense of the audience. And Dem does not have that kind of discipline.
Interesting.
I would say it's like it's in the moment trying to be specific about a Black story, but also kind of treat Black people like everyone else when it comes to horror. Like it just happens, and it's like, but the reality is that when you are using race as a part of as a plot as a main plot point, and you're using the horrors of racism, do you really need to couple that with also graphic and intense scenes of of violence again against Black bodies and and Black people in that space when that we already see that in the real life thing, so it's like give us the moment to escape. And I think some people are and I'm sure I think the creator of the show is Black.
Okay.
So again, I think this is also a struggle of the Black experience, right? Where some people feel, like, oh, it's important to tell this story. It's
Yeah.
important to really do it justice and to really go there. And then there are some other people who are like, I don't need
Yeah.
to go there. I go there when I
Right.
turn on the 11 o'clock news.
Right.
So I don't have to go there because we are there.
Yeah.
And I think, just kind of like, seeing those differences of opinion, but you've seen Lovecraft, and I'm assuming in its entirety. I've seen more than 2 episodes of Lovecraft. I didn't watch the whole show.
Yep. I watched the show and I listened to the podcast, the accompanying podcast with, I believe it's Ashley C. Ford and one of the writers of the show. And so they're able to go a little bit more in depth about decisions that were made. They're having conversation around like what the rationale was behind certain things and how they wanted to highlight, or just some of the central themes that if you watch it more than once, you might pick up on. But sometimes the most minute choices that they made, it was because it was in connection to something else or some larger theme, like the importance of Black futures and seeing that on screen, and how we don't get to see that a lot, the importance of reckoning with our past. And so people, from the present day at that time, being able to go back into the past, it was just, so to be able to listen to the podcast, to see what Misha Green and her people put in front of us, there were definitely some moments where I'm like, y'all didn't need to do that, but also on a whole, I did enjoy what Lovecraft Country gave us. And I feel like in every episode, it left you walking away thinking about something when it comes to the Black experience. And even though it's set in the 50s or 60s, those things are still relevant to this day. They're talking about generational trauma and generational joy. They're talking about the role that children play in people's lives, not just as someone's child, but like when it comes to being in relationship with the children in your lives, like, are we protecting our girls? And what does that look like when we don't? And they were able to use certain plot points to really show us where we fail people, but then also where we have triumph. And so there were also a lot of moments of triumph and, like I said, joy, but then there was magic and there was monsters and then the racists, and it was just a lot.
And would you say like they balanced all of that well?
That's a great question. I would need to think on that a little bit more. Part of me is saying, yeah, maybe, but then they're like thinking back to other episodes, I'm like, they probably could have done a little bit better. But because I knew there were going to be more episodes, there was opportunity for redemption, because that seemed like where the show was going. It seemed like where the show was going largely. Like there's going to be opportunity for the hero to win or heroes to win. And along the way, you might experience some loss. I don't know. That's a good question, though, like about balance.
Yeah, I think that was a real interesting, that was an interesting thing that you just shared. Like, you can win and you may lose, along the way. I think that was just an interesting thing to specify. From what I saw of Lovecraft Country, I definitely think that probably was a big theme specifically for like Atticus. Yes, for Atticus, like, his character specifically, like, just kind of being like, do you win the the total, the big thing, the quote unquote the grand prize, I suppose, like, but at the ultimate cost, and like, and is it worth it, like, but then the Black future, kind of being that space. And I think that also was like visited in the Tulsa episode where Letty goes
that episode.
Yeah.
I watched all of Lovecraft Country with my partner, but that one really got us. And we watched the scene where Letty was holding that woman's hands and standing there with her for her fight. We watched that twice.
Yeah.
It was powerful. That was, and also scary and heart-wrenching.
Yeah. And that's what was like to me. And so I am not a movie person, and I'm not like I don't delve into much of anything like that. Doesn't bring me joy, specifically on the medium of entertainment, because I torture myself enough. Um so yeah, like watching that, like it really was like a powerful moment without, and it was horrifying,
Mm-hmm.
but not, but I don't feel like it spoke to a moment of trauma for me, because it felt like this woman was going in dignity.
And dignity. And
And
a
there was
part,
some like
yeah,
there was go ahead, yeah.
I was gonna say, and a part of what she said that just tugged at my heart is that something about like their existence, or that'll be my faith turned flesh, and
Yes.
just
Yes.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
So there were a lot of moments, and
yeah.
there were a lot of moments that were very much like a full circle. And this
Hmm.
person knowing, like she knew, but she knew that it had to be done,
Yeah.
like in that moment. And like that just speaks back to the to the sacrifices that the people, before us made. And while this is obviously like a fantasticalized version of
Hmm.
what, of what that sacrifice looks like in real life, um I think it's really important. I think especially for like, especially for the, for the generations that are coming up, well, I would say my generation,
Hmm.
like to understand that there's a level of sacrifice that has to be made in order for like real change to come, in order for real, like generational like shifting work to be done. And I don't think, what I fear is that in our generation we are in a space of like really kind of like delving into like ourselves and doing better by ourselves and taking care of ourselves. But what I fear is that that is evolving into a place where there is no opportunity for you to also do the greater good, and
Hmm.
for you to also do the work of, making sure that the person behind you has an easier route.
Mm.
And I think it's really important for us to ensure that we do the work, that we do good, do good community building work that is actually going to be to the benefit of maybe not you in this moment, but
Hmm.
to someone who is coming behind me. I would love for my grandchildren to be in an easier world because,
Yep.
somebody was willing to take the, was willing to get arrested for, for being out in the streets protesting,
Yeah.
or that, and again, it doesn't have to be the ultimate sacrifice of your life, right? Because
Right.
everybody's sacrifice is going to look different. I thoroughly believe that the frontline work is not for everybody. The going out and,
Hmm.
fighting people is not for everybody.
Yep.
Going in the courtroom is not for everybody. But existing in a way that is, that is very intentional about developing new roads for people with your shared experience, that is for everybody. And you
Yeah.
can find your own way of doing that. It doesn't have to be to your danger or to your, to the, to the loss of life, but
Hmm.
it can be to the like, oh, like you don't want me, like, oh, you want me to come and work at your job? Well, I'm coming to work at your job and I'm going to wear my dunks when I
Hmm.
present.
I don't know what is a dunk.
Oh, Nike. So there's pair of Nike shoes.
No,
So it's like high top Nike
I
sneakers.
don't do sneakers.
And I have never owned a pair of dunks, but I know what they are.
Felt so old in that moment.
So
I was like, wait, what are dunks for the people
oh
on this
well,
call who don't
that
know?
is that is sneaker related and not age related.
Oops.
So yeah, so I think so yeah, I think a lot about that. And like in this space that we're in, like, of kind of, again, just having this visibility of Black trauma, I just encourage people to be selective about, about what you intake, and what things you choose to see, because I think your humanity and staying whole is more important than seeing every
Yeah,
moment of the Black experience unfold.
yeah. Like I was on, what was I doing? At some point in time within the last year, I think it was around last summer, and just the back to back like we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Um, at one point in time, I was in like a meeting or something, and someone asked if like we watched XYZ video. And I said, you know what? I'm at a point where I don't have to see the video. I don't need to see the video. I don't
Mhm.
need to see what they did to that person. Um, all all I need to know is that this violence was committed against a member of my community, because I think of all Black people as member of my, like, I'm in community with you. Um,
Yeah.
I don't need to see the video to be able to understand the gravity of the situation, to be able to understand that the work still continues, to be able to understand that
Yeah.
justice and accountability are things that we are still waiting for. I don't need to see that
Yeah.
video. Like, maybe you do, because that is your motivator, potentially non-Black person. But me and my Black behind, we don't need to see that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I also won't be reposting those things.
Hmm.
And not to say, like, there is a very, I know people are often like, you got to share the story or else people won't know, people won't be aware, people won't do anything. People are still going to act. And so for some people, they do need to see that. They do need to understand, it needs to be in their face. For other people, we don't need that. You call me,
Yeah.
you tell me where we need to be or who I need to bail out. It's like
Right.
you said, not everybody needs to be on the front line. Not everybody needs to be out there in the streets. I feel like there's a place for everybody has a part to play in the movement. Um,
Mhm.
and you got to find your place. Some people are out there on the streets burning the stuff down, and then some people are bailing the people out, or
Yeah.
some people are, the code switchers that we need, that are able to translate what's going on to our white and non-Black counterparts who still don't get it. We need all of those people to be able to
Yeah.
make this a success and keep us moving forward. Maybe I shouldn't say success. We need all of these people. We need all of these types of people. So
Mhm.
finding your lane, um, and how you can support and how you can work within this movement, um, is valuable. Um, and I also recognize and realize that there are some people that say we should all be activists that are out in the street. And if you are not putting your body on the line, then you're not really for the movement. And I disagree with that. I disagree with that.
Absolutely.
But there are people
Wholehearted.
out there, there is messaging out there that if you're not doing that, then you're not doing enough. And I disagree with that.
Yeah. Because the reality is everybody's not in that space, right?
Mhm.
We had a conversation a couple of weeks back about I serve on an EDI committee at my current institution, and one of the conversations that we had, we just had people kind of spark the conversation around, like, what are some causes that you would like to see, more so pushed to the forefront. We had a participant share, like, I would really like to see more conversation on, like, on equal pay amongst, women, like the pay inequality, the pay gap between men and women in general. And just wanted, just like, yeah, like, I really feel like we should, talk about that a little bit more. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And we started to get into a conversation about, how can you do the work? Like, like, what can I do? Because, like, I
Mhm.
also, like, am not in a position to lose my job,
Mhm.
but but I do want to see these things change. I want to see movement, and I want to see things on the ground. And, and my advice to that person was like, well, listen, everybody's not an on the ground type person.
Mhm.
Everybody's not I'm going to jump headfirst out into the streets and be the first one on, down at Centennial Park protesting.
Yep.
But sometimes, like, the protest is in you being willing to talk about your salary with a peer who's in the same position as you, but is also in a different, but is also has, you guys have different gender
Mhm.
expressions and identities. So, like, having that conversation sometimes, because the way that supremacy and inequality continues to exist is because we don't talk about it. We don't have the
Right.
conversations,
Right.
and they encourage you to be fearful to have that conversation with your peers because, well, you don't want anybody in your business, and
Mhm.
you don't want to say this, and you don't want to, say and do that. But the reality is, like, the inability of us to be able to have that conversation across marginalized identities is the thing that keeps people from knowing what's going on. It's a form of gatekeeping.
Right.
And it kind of keeps you, and it keeps other people from being able to experience equality in that space. So I'm like, even if you can't, even if you don't feel the courage at this current moment to go and tell your boss, like, hey, you should be paying my my female coworker the exact same pay as me,
Mm-hmm.
or better. And also having the conversation about, well, what are you willing to lose if that's the energy that you're going to approach with too?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, again, you have to be prepared to lose something.
Yeah.
But yeah, like having those conversations, talking about it again, like, don't be afraid to have a conversation, because more likely than not, the person who's at the same level of you is not able to take you down, based on the conversation that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like they can put the bug out, like depending on who they're connected to.
Mm-hmm.
So you also have to be comfortable with, what you're willing to share, what you're willing to lose by, by speaking up. If
Right.
you are one of those people who genuinely feel like the time is always right to do what's right,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever I lose, if I did the right thing, I'm comfortable with that, then, we need more people like that,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always have to be you marching in the streets, doesn't have to
Yep.
be, you going door to door and knocking on people's doors. Sometimes those little things are, to me, acts of resistance as well.
Yeah.
Is having those conversations. That's a great place to start, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay. So let's we have one more topic and then we need to close out the scroll because we enjoy our conversations, but we also don't want to do what we did to y'all last time and give you a two-part
yes,
episode.
well,
So
yeah,
again, if you could take us into our last topic for the scroll.
absolutely. So not to be super down, hopefully this is going to be one of joy for some people, but we also did experience 3 losses this week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, in DMX, Black Rob, and Shock G, really all pioneers, in the community in some space or another. Excuse me, and just really, like, revolutionary and game changing, like DMX specifically, like, just when he was at his height, I think of, like, commercial success, like DMX was a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to kind of, like, look back and, like, see his legacy. And also I think he's continued for Black people to be, like, kind of a staple in our community. And
Mm-hmm.
for to lose him, I think, super young, I think was, like a really big shock. Black Rob, whoa. Like that, like that's a moment, like, for our people, like, so, and Shock G, I'm not as familiar with his work because he's a little bit older than I think than me.
Yeah.
But yeah, also still, like, a really big part of the culture. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think the group that he was a part of was super major, and I won't speak too much about it because don't let me get to lying on this show.
Yeah.
But
I think like just as things continue to come out, one of the things that I've seen, and I'm sure people will check me if I'm incorrect about this, one of the things that people are reporting on, or at least highlighting in this moment of his passing, is he is one of the folks that helped like get Tupac onto the scene. And so when we
mm,
talk about the legacy that these folks are leaving behind, it's not just the music that they gave us. And, in some instances, the cultural pieces, the cultural moments, or the fashion or anything else. Sometimes it is the other folks that they have brought into our lives and impacted us in very real, very specific ways, and then continued to do culture change, culture shock, maybe not culture shock, but other folks that they've brought into our lives in different ways. So be well to those folks, rest well, and our hearts go out to the families and everyone that is impacted by their loss. Yeah.
absolutely. And I just realized I did not know Shock G by Shock G
Oh
as
yeah, it's
DMX.
the hump. Yep, the Humpty Hump. Yep.
So wow, like, and now even a little bit more significant. I hadn't actually
Mm-hmm.
looked into that. Like, I saw the story, but I didn't read too deeply into that. So, like,
Yeah.
even more significant, man. Like, I'm seeing the impact a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
more in that space. So yeah. Yeah. So, rest in peace to those people, to those pioneers. They gave us great things while they were here. And may they continue to give us great things. And we are going to close out the scroll with that.
Yep. So let's get into this episode's family feud. So because of everything that's been going on and what we are experiencing or what we're bearing witness to, we thought it appropriate to actually focus on self-care as the topic of conversation for this episode's family feud. So, join us in the conversation. Definitely make sure you're following us on Instagram, or, hop into our inbox. That's goodblackpodcast@gmail.com to continue the conversation. But we wanted to really center in and focus in on self-care. And like even this episode is evidence of why it's so important, why it's needed as we talk about just the hypervisibility of Black trauma and violence that's committed against us in the videos and just everything else. But to start, like what is self-care? When folks hear that term, and I know you can't respond to me right now, but when you hear the term self-care, what is that? What does that look like? Like, yeah. Think about that.
Yeah, I think a lot about that because I feel like my first probably introduction to the term self-care was like, bubble baths and cucumbers on your eyes and, or binge eating whatever while doing whatever. And I think through listening to other people talk about like their own self-care routines, like I've learned it to be a little bit more broad, first of all, and then also more broad, and then also like in some places like super specific because everybody has a different version of what these individual things look like. So yeah, it can look a lot of different ways. I think for me, like the accountability is really big. Like for me, I knew this about myself. I tend to be a little lazy. I'm not gonna fold up the clothes if I don't have to. I'm not gonna do it.
Because I don't want to say it's violence, but it makes me mad. Like they should just come out the dryer folded. Who did this?
Hey, really?
That is reason number 75. Well, I want to get married, so I will have somebody to fold these clothes for me.
That you know what? It's an agenda. It's an agenda from the women to make us be laundry folders.
I cannot. Like that is reason number 75 why I want to get married again. Reason number 76 is I need somebody to go check this mail because I'm not good at that. Go open the box, see what's in there. I forget.
And you know what? That is what single time is for, to figure out what you need help with, people to help you so that you can get to your self-care. So like that's super but the accountability piece of like doing the small stuff of taking care of your home and washing the dishes before you go to bed at night, like they are not like, those are things that sound like responsibilities, but the reality is like when you are in a good headspace, and you're in a space of trying to take care of yourself and and doing better by yourself, like you feel so much better when you walk into a house and there's no dishes in the sink.
Oh, absolutely.
When those are not on the couch, no matter what is going on in my background right now, don't worry about that. You feel better with those things, like those things having been done. And so sometimes like self-care is like, the accountability, and also doing what you're supposed to do and doing the things that you say that you're going to do. And really kind of being able to be in a space of affirming to yourself that to me, doing the things that you say you're going to do is like affirming your own power and like your ability to get stuff done and your ability to survive. Like in some spaces, like it just feels good to be like, okay, I didn't want to do that, but it is done now and I feel better because the thing is done. That could be calling to set up a doctor's appointment. That could be going to pick up your prescriptions because you need them. That could be deciding to finally get on that vitamin regimen. And one day I'm going to be flipping this into an ad.
Oh, I was like, do we have ads now? What are you doing?
No, not yet. But one day soon. Somebody's going to be paying us to do that.
Like this sounds like a ritual ad. Wait a minute.
And we're gonna get there.
Did I just get Kev on stage? I just got Kev on stage.
Kev on stage. If you want to put us on your podcast network, we in there.
Hi,
Or if anybody else
Kevin.
would like to welcome us to your network or give us our own network, that would be great because I can see it and hear it now. But not to get off topic. Going to bed early, doing all that stuff, super important, I think, to self-care. And I think people have to get away from the feeling like it's that self-care is also laziness, because it's not the same.
It's not. I think one of the things, like when you started off, you talked about how when you originally started hearing about self-care, it was like bubble baths and cucumbers on the eyes. And I feel like there's this commodification that's been happening when it comes to self-care that makes people think that in order to be able to participate in self-care, you have to be at a certain level of privilege or income in order to participate, in order to deserve self-care. And I'm here to tell you that is BS.
Absolutely.
Like the physical aspects of taking care of and adorning your body, that is one piece of self-care. That is one piece of self-care. that is one way to look at self-care, or one of the pieces of somebody's self-care practice, like what they're doing when it comes to their body. And even that, there's like I said, there's this commodification that's happening. So self-care doesn't have to cost anything. There are a lot of things that can be considered self-care that you do for yourself, because you're going to define it for yourself, that you don't necessarily have to put any money towards. And so, and that's whether it's body-based or not, it costs you nothing to turn on some good music and dance around in your house. I led a session, I guess this was last month, of part of the series called Black Sweat, where people have the opportunity to learn from Black sexuality professionals. It's put on by Bianca Laureano. Shout outs to her. And the session that I led, or the workshop that I led, was around movement and, using erotic dance or sensual dance as part of your practice, your self-care practice, your wellness practice. It costs you, once again, it costs you nothing to be able to put on some music and dance around your house. And that might be what feels good to you. It costs you nothing to carve out some quiet time in your day. It costs you nothing to journal, to possibly take a walk. Self-care also looks like setting boundaries. And so when we talk about accountability, setting boundaries, these non-tangible things, that's another thing that, we can drop in the self-care bucket. So what does your boundary setting look like? And I know we talked about this in the last episode. I'm not going to get into it, too much now, but that is a part of your self-care practice. That is how you are taking care of yourself and how you are able to sustain. So self-care can be things that help you self-regulate in the moment, like maybe it's some deep breathing, maybe it's some movement, what have you. But it can also be things that help you sustain longer term. So what are the practices that you have in place to support you as you are going through these days, these months, these weeks, these years? And what does that self-care practice look like? From head to toe, using all 5 of your senses. How have you built the environment around you? What does your space look like? Because that's also a part of your self-care. Self-care, in that bucket, it's things that bring you joy. It's things that bring you peace. And once again, it doesn't necessarily have to cost you any money, but because we're using a lot of terms this episode, because we live in a capitalist society, about to get on my soapbox, because we live in a capitalist society.
Break out the box.
People are thinking, I don't deserve self-care. I don't deserve preservation of self because I'm not making a certain amount. I haven't put enough time in, or whatever the rationale is. And I'm telling you, you deserve And so sit and think about what self-care looks like for you. What do you need in order to sustain, in order to not just survive, but let's take it up a notch to thriving. And how
Right.
do we get there?
Right.
Um, one of the things that I have in my email signature is a quote from Audre Lorde, because the other thing is people think that self-care is like selfish, and it's not.
Mm,
It's not. But a
yeah.
quote from Audre Lorde is caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare.
Yeah.
So we already said on this podcast that, that weathering, that's a tactic. So what are
Mm,
you doing to take care of
counteract that.
yourself, to counteract that, to keep going? Not
Yeah.
just so you can make money for people and,
Right.
buy into these corporations, but just so you can have the life or the joy and the peace that you're looking for.
Right.
Um, so yeah, when it
And I
comes to, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like in so many places, like there's also like the idea that like, I can't afford to take care of myself, and not even in the monetary
Mm-hmm.
sense, but I can't stop. I can't slow down. Like I
Oh,
can't,
yeah.
because if I
Yeah.
do that, then this will happen. Or if I potentially like don't show up to to the basketball games, then this will happen. And I say
Mm-hmm.
that specifically for like parents who have children who are active and going to this place and that. And if I say no to my if I say no to to my partner needing to talk to me as soon as I walk in from work, like what is that going to do? Because sometimes I think what self-care requires for you to do is to know yourself and know what you need.
Mm.
And we are so accustomed to finding out what our companies need from us and what
Mm-hmm.
everybody else needs from us that we don't know what we need in order to keep going. And if it means that for me to be a better partner to you, that hey, when I get off work, I need an hour to decompress.
Yeah.
I need an hour to not nobody ask me no questions. I need to go. I need to sit. I need to go outside and journal. I need to be outside in nature. I need to hear, like some calming music or,
Yeah.
whatever the case might be.
Watch
Those things,
TikToks and other funny videos,
yeah,
like whatever it is.
yeah. And if that is what you need, that you're not selfish for asking for that. You are the goal is for you to be the best version of yourself. And if you are not healthy and whole for yourself, you cannot be there for other people. You
Yeah.
cannot be of a benefit to anybody else who is attached to your life. So it's important for you to even maintain good relationships, to be able to assess for yourself, hey, this is what I need, and this is a
Yeah.
non-negotiable. If you can't get around that, then I think that maybe we need to reconsider and reassess like what's going on here. Even if that comes down to your job, like if you feel like you have a job and it's like, listen, I know that by the time January works its way around, like I have a lot, I've had a loss and it's a hard time for me. I need to be able every January to take a week off. That
Mm-hmm.
sounds extreme, but if you are in a space of privilege to where like you have like access to
Mm-hmm.
vacation time, and you have access to the ability to do those things, do those things. Your job will be posted if you drop dead today. They're gonna post it in 6 hours,
Yeah.
and they're not gonna send your family no flowers. They might send them a card. They might just give them a phone call and be like, "Hey, we heard. Dang, that's rough." And then the job is on the internet the next day. So take care of yourself, prioritize yourself, and also learn about yourself. Figure out what makes you tick. Figure out the things that are a trigger for you. Figure out what sets you off. Because if you know that I need my 8 hours of sleep. I need to
Mm-hmm.
be in my bed by 9:45. If I'm not, I'm a different person in the morning when I wake up.
Yep.
And start to learn those things about yourself, like observing yourself throughout the day and being able to take note. Because one thing that I learned for myself, just like when I was younger, is kind of being like, I don't like being angry. I don't like it. I feel like it, I feel like I feel it on me. It's like I feel anger on me. I feel that energy. So what do I do to avoid that? Now,
Mm-hmm.
traffic these days is probably what makes me the most angry. And that's a blessing, right? Like that I don't have things in my life that like anger me that much, because I know that anger is something that's uncomfortable for me. So what that forced me to do is be like, I don't like being angry, so let me adjust my perspective on how I approach situations that upset me,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm important and I don't like the way this makes me feel. So to me, who is important, more important than me being angry and expressing that anger towards you, whomever you may be, I'm going to prioritize the response that I want to give you and not the one that I feel like you have elicited, right?
Yeah.
Because even that is like a form of self-care. Like that's self-control, that's balance, that's like that's being able to meter out, like I talked about like in the last episode, is like learning to give measured smoke. Because for me, I don't want to be in that space all the time, but I will.
Yeah.
I'll go there, but I don't want to be in that space all the time. And so I want to measure that out in the space where I feel comfortable, sharing, providing that when needed, but that in a way that doesn't tap my resource. It doesn't tap all of my energy in order to do so. So I think just being cognizant of yourself, learning your things that make you tick, and also learning the things that make you feel whole and that make you feel like you are operating on 100%. Just kind of taking some time to get to know yourself, journal, go to talk space. We're gonna get the ad. We're gonna get it. Well, I'm speaking it. We're gonna have the ad.
Yes.
But yes, do the pieces, like that are do the self-assessment and the self-work, because you're worth it. Like your ability to live and thrive in this space is in this world, on this ghetto rock where we live and share with Beyonce. It's worth you being here. It's worth you being around, and not only you being here and being around, but also being whole and being full in the space and letting people get the fullness of you. Because there's something, I believe that there's something in everybody. There's something in each and every one of us like that we don't necessarily always get to give out. But if we don't get to give it out because we don't necessarily take the time to dig deep down. I am not the best version of myself yet. I hope to meet him one day.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to just do that work, man. Self-care is extremely important, and like the ways you do it is by loving on yourself, getting to know yourself, learning yourself, and then telling people about themselves and about yourself in a way that will allow them to have relationship with you that is still that still allows you to be whole.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned early on, in your latest explanation of self-care, your latest discussion of self-care just now was just the observation that you took note of when you were younger, when you were a kid. And so that just got me to thinking like how family, when we talk about self-care, how family and parents and other caregivers set the example and model self-care. We adults serve as models all the time. And so, extending that to, oh yeah, well, of course, the young people in our lives are also looking to us as examples or models of like, what does it look like to take care of yourself? And that's something that I think we always need to keep in mind. These young folks are like a sponge, and they might, they're always watching. And so even though they might do things a little differently than us, like I love the fact that each generation will look at the generation past and be like, I'll take some of this and none of that and all of this, and you can just like give me a little sprinkling of that. And so it might look a little different every single generation, but they are looking to us as guides, as examples of self-care and having a self-care practice and knowing that it is okay to participate in self-care ritual. And I think that's just very important to like name in this moment. So when we think of the models that we have, like what are we modeling for the folks that are coming up behind us? Are they seeing that we are going, we're always hustling? And I understand that this might be someone's experience, but you're always hustling and there's no reprieve at all. There's no moment where you're able to just sit and be, or, whatever your self-care practice. And it might be like a large scale ritual. It might just be one or two things that you like to do that make you feel good or bring you joy and like help you feel like you can move to the next day or whatever. But like, are these folks seeing that? Or are they just always seeing the fact that you are always having to be the rock? You are always having to be the one to figure it out. And what does that do if they're constantly seeing that and they're not seeing the self-care pieces?
Yeah.
So
I would say our
just,
Black girls internalize that probably more than anybody.
yeah.
Right, like the kind of the perception of like seeing our Black women like, you know, kind of be there for everybody, holding together the pieces for everybody, and then kind of internalizing that probably unconsciously, of like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do, this is how you do it, which is why the statement of like, oh, a real woman or a real man for that matter too is like so annoying.
I was gonna say, like, I think that Black men also get this placed on their shoulders as well. We are
Yeah.
both Black people, if you forgot. So we're talking about
Just in
our
case.
people. We're talking about our people in our community. But yeah, I think Black men also have this placed on their shoulders a lot, and it shows up differently. Like, I have to be the provider, I have to be the one to go out and make the bread and do the hustle.
Right.
And like, I am literally Atlas, and the world is on my shoulders. I can't put it down. I'm not allowed to put it down.
Right.
So just Black people all around. We just
Yeah.
stop putting stuff on us. Stop
Right.
it.
And I mean, like, does that, I mean, like, that would be a good thing to double back on, like, when we talk about epigenetics and
Yeah.
like where that desire, you know, like, and where that requirement, like, for weight and for responsibility comes from, because we've seen, I think some of us, not everybody, has seen a shift in, you know, like, in what the lived Black experience looks like when it, as it regards work, and the need to work, and also like the need the need to work also being one that is attached to your need to live.
Or
Um,
need to live and value, like, your place in the society. That's a whole other podcast. Hustle culture is doing a number.
so yeah, like, yes, hustle culture, and like how that's like, I think that would be interesting for us to talk about later, but self-care today.
So self-care today, one thing at a time. That is also self-care, like one thing at a time.
One thing at a time, right? Look at us, about to unwittingly just stumble right into hustle culture. So yeah, so speaking of self-care for us, like, you know, what's a part of your routine, kind of like how have you prioritized practicing self-care for yourself?
Yeah, so when it comes to the thing that I will say before I actually answer your question, I know you ain't asked me all that, I'm gonna give it to you anyway. People have different self-care kits or practices or rituals depending on what's going on in their lives. So I'm going to use myself as an example to answer what you just asked me, because this last week has been really busy with birth energy and supporting parents and being on the go, go, go. And so when it comes to my post-birth self-care routine, first and foremost, I have this playlist that I've put together. It's a bunch of it's actually a bunch of love songs for the most part, and then some things that are specific to parents singing to their children are up there, like Stevie Wonder's Isn't She Lovely is up there. But in reality, it's a whole bunch of other love songs. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. And I originally made it for a client, and it's like it's older school jams that remind me of my parents. And so I specifically listen to that because it helps me feel good. Like, after a birth, usually I'm pretty tired. I have like all of this energy that I need to work through. And so listening to music that reminds me of my parents, it just makes me feel good. So I listen to that. Usually when I'm listening to that, I cry because I'm also kind of still thinking about the birth. Crying is okay. It's, you know, it's good for the soul. This piece I need to work on or get some type of substitution for. I also have noticed that I'd like to go to McDonald's after a birth.
Okay.
I'll go to McDonald's after birth. So I want to substitute that out with something else, because I do need food to sustain me. And so maybe I'll figure something else out. So yeah, I listen to music, I cry a little, I eat something good or something that gives me joy or pleasure. Um, I try to get as much, like I try to catch up on sleep or get as much sleep as possible. I process the experience with a set people in my life, so that I'm able to, yeah, I process the experience. And if y'all ever see that I am doing a stand-up comedy special, just know that there will be a section of my set that is dedicated to my innermost thoughts when it comes to me being at these births.
Mm.
Just know. I think the audience will be in for a good time if that ever happens. Um, so yeah, I sleep. I also just put on some really comfy clothes. I take a shower. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this. And I dance because I have to move that energy out of my body. So, like I said, when we were doing the catch up, to be a witness, to be a support person at someone's birth, I'm like sitting in all of the energy and like all of the highs and lows and in betweens of that experience. And I need to get all of that energy off and out of my body. So I will pick a song that resonates with the moment. I will dance. Um, and sometimes I post it. For the most part, I post it on one of my pages. And then the final thing is, I will typically end up cleaning my house, so that I can declutter my space. So those are all the things, like when it comes to my, post birth self-care practice, that's what that looks like. And then, for a regular day, it looks like something completely different. But yeah, self-care won't always look the same depending on what you've got going on. But what about you? Like, what do you got going on as far as self-care? What's a part of your routine?
I think I'm still new to it. I think for me, like refinding the importance of routine has been something like a theme that I've kind of been getting into this year. Recently, what I've adopted is kind of like just having like a quiet time and meditation, like by myself, in the morning and at night before bed. And it doesn't have to be like an super long period of time, but I just really found that it kind of centered me and grounded me. And earlier in the year, like I played around with starting like a morning time and a nighttime routine. So I feel like this is kind of like just a natural development of that. And I
Mhm.
hope it continues. My intention is that it continues to grow throughout the rest of this year. Um, but yeah, like I wrote down one, like I found this guy on TikTok who did like these really cool like little drawings and stuff, like explaining kind of the purpose of a morning time and nighttime routine. So initially, like I made one at the outset of the year, and it was like, okay, like 1 hour before bed, this is what I start to do. Like I go in, I use the bathroom, like I take the, brush my teeth, I take my shower, I do all of those things, and then I do a journal. Well, actually, no, the bathroom is last in the
Mhm.
routine. So I start with the journal, like reviewing the day, like what were some great things that happened today? What were some not so great things that happened today? What did I learn? And then I go to doing like exercise, that sort of thing. Then I go to then the bathroom. So that's like, washing your face, brushing your teeth, in the shower, using the restroom, taking a shower, and
Mhm.
then putting the clothes in the washing machine before bed, and then going to bed, and I can, choose whatever it is that I want to watch it, praying and then going to bed. Um, so I made that up, and I don't think I followed it for very long, but I still have it in my phone, and I intend to go back to
You
it.
can go back to
Um,
it. Yeah.
yeah, I can always go back to it. Like I wrote it down, like it's a part of it, it's a part of the ideas and such now. But yeah, I think it's important also to just remember for me, it has been important to remember that I deserve those things, and those are
Mhm.
good things.
Those are good things. Yeah.
Those are good things. They're not like, like they're not passive things that you can just kind of ignore. Like the ability to like wind down at the end of the night, like you
Yeah.
need that
You
to
need
give your
that.
body rest and to start developing signals in your brain, like to let you know, like, oh, this means it's time to rest.
Mhm.
And it takes time to kind of like set those patterns. Something I've been learning a lot is like neurological pathways and how the things that you do kind of like set up a precedence for what you will continue to do, unless you interrupt certain patterns and establish new ones.
Oh, so
Um,
he's smart, smart. No, you smart.
I am not smart. This is all something I was reading in a devotional. Like it's something that I have learned, and I'm like, yo,
Talk,
like
talk
okay, like
about
I
neurological pathways. Never
well,
heard
I
of that
mean,
before.
It's just the way your brain works. That's all. It's just the
I'm
way your
kid-
brain works.
I am kidding. I am
I
kidding, y'all.
know, but I also want people to hear it and not be turned off, right?
No, no,
Because
no,
I think
no.
Black people sometimes we hear stuff and be like, oh, here he go, and it's like, no, like just hear it out, just
Just
hear it
hear
out,
me
like
out, yeah.
it's valid information, like, and I had to learn. This is something I had to learn to kind of like, start working on rewiring myself in some ways that I think about things. So yes, so setting up a new pathway, like if you're trying to break an old habit, and you don't actually establish a new habit in its place, it will be harder for you to actually break that habit.
Yeah.
Now, obviously you can, like, you can really push through it depending on what your willpower is looking like. But yeah, like, so I feel like the self-care piece is like a part of that, like not remembering, but forcing yourself to be like, no, I'm not going to just put the clothes on the couch. I'm either going to set a specific time at which I'm going to fold the clothes, or I am going to do it as soon as I get them out. And maybe I'll set a separate time for me to put them away. But like establishing a new way of doing it and like kind of and sticking to that is the way that you establish the new behavior. So I'm working on that. Like, I'm trying to change myself here, y'all. Like, I'm really trying to shift, and I'm not becoming a different person. I'm just adopting new ways of doing me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so I'm really, I'm glad I actually brought that up, because I hadn't thought about that until just now. But like, I'm remembering, like, okay, that's important. You got to remember to do a new thing. And not just not do the old thing, like do something new.
That's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, helpful. So that's what I'm trying to work on. Like, I mean, I don't have a self-care routine like down packed just yet. But I'm learning what I like, and being more comfortable in asserting what I like. I like peaceful things, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in my favorite cousin this week. But I like peaceful stuff. Like, I like to feel like relaxed when I'm at home specifically. And so I'm just trying to focus on that. I'm trying to focus on, like, establishing really good habits that are a good thing. Oh, and okay, that's what it brought it back to my mind. Habits and patterns are healthy, and they are important. So I think about how, like, our parents would have like a routine. Our parents had like routines for us. Like, when all right, all right, we're finna eat. Okay, after you eat, you go in to take a bath, and after you take a bath, you go into bed. We had a routine as children, some of us, and that's not to say for everybody, but some of us had routines as children, and that kept us like in a certain place. And that's why I feel like the concept of reparenting yourself as an adult is so
important.
Like, so important. Like, it is low-key revolutionary. Yeah. Right. Because like, we get out of these patterns, we get out of these habits, and it kind of throws us into adulthood in a space of imbalance. Like, you go into adulthood being like, oh, I can do whatever I want now. This is great. And then you continue doing whatever you want. But then that gets you to a place in adulthood where you're like, okay, something, or at the very least, you're not functioning. Yep, that's the word.
That's a word.
You're not functioning at the optimal space for what you can do. So like, set up your own new routines, like put yourself back on a habit. Yes, you should not. And I was like this at 19. You shouldn't expect to call me at 11 o'clock and think that I'm going to answer my phone. I'm not. I'm asleep. If I'm not asleep, I'm in my bed, and I'm not planning to talk to you. So
meanwhile, the heathen over here is like, call me, please.
Oh gosh. Ain't nothing open that time of night but liquor stores and legs.
Hey. Hey-o. I was an adult.
I kid. But it's not untrue. So yeah, like, kind of like get into like, assessing for yourself, like, okay, am I operating at a space where I feel like I really feel good about myself and about my operation at the end of the day? And at the beginning of the day, like, do I feel good? Do I feel like energized to go and tackle my day and like, and get it done? Or do you not? And then what can you do to put yourself in that space? And I think that's the goal of self-care, to do some, to treat yourself in such a way that you are always prepared for, at the very least equipped to accomplish what you need in a day. And at the end of the day, feeling like, okay, like, I did the thing, and now I'm going to give myself the reward of rest. Yeah. And that don't mean you got to go crazy all day long either.
That
You
exactly,
you don't have to
exactly.
be flying on 10. Like sometimes for you, if your accomplishment of the day is folding the clothes, have at it.
Yeah,
If it is washing your face and being able to get back into bed, do that too. Because
yeah.
sometimes like knowing when to say when is important. That's a piece of self-care too.
That's a piece of self-care too.
Yeah.
Final thing, and then we can wrap. The healing properties, I don't want to get too woo-woo on y'all, but the healing properties of water can be so therapeutic.
Mm,
Like we talk, or I've heard this term, I think primarily in Black spaces. We talk about people being water babies and like, oh, I love the water, and like that's my
mm,
little water baby and stuff like that. Water can be so cleansing, it can be so therapeutic. And sometimes for me, a, like if I'm having a particularly rough day, or I've had to deal with some news or deal with the energy from a whole bunch of people, like I especially do this after I've been in meeting spaces with people, and sometimes after pretty hard birth experiences or birth support experiences.
mm,
I will wash my hair. Like if I can't do anything else, I will wash my hair.
mm,
And so when I say that self-care does not have to be this big thing that you pay for, like the simple act of hair washing for me, and for those of y'all who have not seen a picture of me or anything else like that, I have locks, I have dreadlocks. They're pretty lengthy at this point in time, but to be able to stand under the shower or just get my hair wet and like wash away the stress of whatever, I had to wade through, can be so therapeutic. It can be so relaxing. And sometimes that's all I need. And I just realized in this moment, like, I'm like, why am I itching to wash my hair? It's because I'm coming off this very busy week. And I'm like, that's what needs to happen first and foremost. Because I haven't been able to do all the other things that I typically do. And I want to
mm.
wash my hair so bad right now because I know it's going to feel good and it's going to put me in a different space.
Yeah.
um but yeah, that's just the close out. So find the thing or things that work for you, and build out your self-care routine or practice or toolkit, whatever you want to call it. Know that it is going to be specific to you. um it takes you learning about yourself, your needs, and then identifying ways to address and soothe and sustain. And this is a muscle that you are going to continue, like you're going to learn over time how to flex it a little bit more. So maybe you are at a point where it's harder for you to participate in self-care practices, or you still feel like, you know what, this is so indulgent or it's selfish, or if I'm not taking care of XYZ, then I'm not doing what I need to do. And so if you're in that space, just know and be patient with yourself that it's going to take some time. Maybe you just start with one thing that you include in your self-care toolkit that makes you feel good, that gives you a moment, to yourself where you're able to reflect, or whatever it looks like for you. And then eventually over time, you'll continue to flex and strengthen that muscle, and it'll come more naturally to you. You won't be apologetic about you taking
Mm,
care of yourself. And the taking care of yourself is not specifically so that you can go do for and do unto others, but it's so you can be each day you can be a better version of yourself and show up in this world and for people you care about in the way that you want to. So yeah,
yeah.
with that, we can close out Family Feud and move on over to love letters.
Absolutely.
So, love letters. So, here we are. So, we had our big discussion about self care. And so, I know that, in the love letter section of our episodes, it's supposed to be about holding people accountable because that is how we show them that we love them. So, this love letter is going to go out to all of our parents, caregivers, guardians, anyone who has young people in your life. This is for you. I want you to hold yourselves accountable to create a practice of self-care. Um, you are the example or one of the examples to the young people in your life
Mhm.
about what it means to be an adult, what it means to operate in this world, and what it means to care for themselves. Um, so I want you to, your task, and you don't have an option whether or not you get to choose to take on this task. I want you to hold yourself accountable when it comes to, I'm going to be intentional about really building out, even if it's just one thing for now, really building out my self-care practice, ritual, toolkit, tool belt, safety box, hot pocket, whatever you want to call it, whatever you're going to like mentally put your self-care pieces into. I want you to hold yourself accountable and start to do those things and start to model in the way that our young folks need us to model. Yes, they need to see the strength, they need to see the community building, and they also need to see us care for ourselves, because that way they know it is deserved, it is needed, and this is what helps us sustain and move forward and keep going. And our story is so much more than doom and gloom. It is survival, it is thriving,
Yeah.
it is Black futures.
Yeah.
um so you participating in self-care and modeling that for our young people is one way that we can continue to support our future generations. So that's my love letter.
Oof. That was good. That was good. Um, my love letter is to Black people. I think that we have had a rough, we've had a rough week, we've had a rough go of it, um, in general. And you are not everything that has happened to you. You are not everything that has happened to us. And again, you know, and I think my accountability piece for the love letter this week is much the same as yours. Um, take care of yourself. It is the most powerful act of revolution that you can ever pick up. Take care of yourself. That doesn't mean to ignore what's going on around you. That doesn't mean to be completely devoid and ignorant on, on what our country specifically, because I'm speaking specifically of the Black American experience. It doesn't matter what our country throws at you, and what our, and what, you get to see regurgitated back at you on the screen, in representation of yourself. Take care of yourself. Everybody will be better while you are taking care of yourself. The people close to you will be better when you take care of yourself. And the people who try to oppress you will be sick at the thought of you taking care of yourself. So do what you got to do. Get up, wash your face, go, go take the nap if you need to take the nap, fold the clothes if you need to fold the clothes. Don't go outside if you don't need to go outside. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Keep yourself whole. Let the system choke on you if absolutely necessary, but keep yourself whole. Take care of yourself. You deserve it. You are worthy of it. You were worthy before you heard this on this show.
Yep.
And you need to walk in that, step in that, believe in that you are worth the time that it's going to take to give yourself care and to give yourself love. Love on yourself when nobody else will, and that will come back to you. And for those of you who have children, as Jay mentioned, show your children that too.
Yes.
Again, that goes into the Black futures. I just can't stress that enough for Black people. Like, love on yourself. Like, it's enough trash. There's enough trash in the world. You don't have to repeat it to yourself. Go love on yourself. Take a moment, take a breather, give yourself the moment. It will be okay. All that information will still be the same when you come back to it. But for right now, take a moment, love on yourself, treat yourself well, and care about yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Put your mask on first.
Put your mask on first. Yes.
So that's what I have to say. I love my people, and I want to see us thrive. I don't want to just see us continuing to survive, from year to year, generation to generation. We thriving out here, and we doing everything we said we was gonna do.
Yep. I'm here for that. That was beautiful. Well, y'all, we've come to our final segment.
Our favorite segment.
Our favorite segment.
Yes.
My favorite cousin. So I'll go first this week. I'm already talking. So my favorite cousin for this episode goes out to it's this IG page called Black Girls Can Heal. And that's Black Girls Can Heal _ if you want to look them up and follow them as well. And so this is a page dedicated to teaching women and femmes and girls to like embrace the healing that comes with and that's needed in life, and it encourages people to use their voice, to find their spirit, and really take control over their lives. And so I love the content. For the most part, I love the content that is here. It talks, trauma, but then it also talks about, and like we've talked on here, or at least alluded to on here, like reparenting yourself and doing the healing work for your inner child. It's got thing about self-care, it's got support, and it's just a lot of really great posts where they're amplifying messages of care and healing specific to the experience of Black women and femmes. And sometimes just asking like, sis, how you doing? So I really enjoy this page. I feel like this is a piece of a love letter to Black women specifically. I love to see that this work is being done and that folks are having this conversation and folks are willing to engage in this conversation. Another thing that I want us to talk about on this podcast today, and I think I said this to my partner. I don't know. I say a lot to him, and he is very nice, and he listens to me. I'll be rattling off sometimes, y'all. And sometimes that man has just asked me how I'm doing. I'm like, let me tell you. But yeah, healing hits different when you are at a certain stage in your life, when you are with a specific partner. Healing hits different. Yeah. And I feel like that this page, Black Girls Can Heal, helps kind of highlight that and helps folks in the process of healing. And it calls out like, what is healing? What does that look like for you? So just curating conversations around healing spaces, transformational spaces, the quote unquote simple things you can do to start your journey of healing from whatever has happened in your lived experience. And I think it's, like I said, a beautiful page that is almost like a love letter to Black women specifically. So that is my favorite cousin for this week. What about you?
So my favorite cousin for this week is a lot simpler. It is the Great British Baking Show.
I love that show. I love
it. It is just like, it's so good.
It is
like,
so good.
It is so good. And it is like the antithesis of everything about American television.
Correct.
It is super calm. Like, it's relaxed. Like, the hosts are like, they're a little hype.
Yeah. But we tolerate them. They're so good.
Yes. They're like the flair of the show. But for the most part, like, everything is super calm. Like, it is pressure. Like, you get to see these people really being like, oh my gosh, like baking for their lives. But it's also not like, they're not out here asking them to make a 10-foot tall like sugar sculpture that nobody can eat, which is ridiculous. And like, and whatever else for the sake of baking. Like, they're asking them to bake practical things that may be difficult to accomplish, like for a cook or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, it's not impossible and it's not ridiculous. It's not something that you're never going to, ever be able to make again. It might be something you may have never desired to make again.
Right.
But it's not ridiculous and over the top. Like, the music is calm, the scenery is calm, and like, I feel like that's my aesthetic, and I feel like it always has been. I just really am kind of leaning more into that now. Like, but that's kind of like my energy. Like, that show like is so calm, and it's also like super gratifying to see people like be successful on the show. One of the winners, Nadia, which
my God, you read my mind. I love Nadia so much, and I love Nadia
so freaking much. I actually ended up watching her show before I started watching the Great British Baking Show.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that she was a contestant until like
Yes.
last weekend when I binged her whole season. I
Hmm.
was like, yo, I'm like, is that Nadia
That's my
from?
girl Nadia. Yes. And that's how I was
Yeah,
introduced. She's so amazing. She
yeah,
seems like such a sweet person.
yeah.
I follow her on IG. Like
Oh,
like you
really?
said, she has the two shows, I believe, on Netflix right now. That's gonna be my other favorite cousin because I do what I want. Nadia
It's our
Hussein.
show.
She has two shows on Netflix right now, and I've tried some of the cooking recipes. I'm not a big
Mhm.
baker, like the beetroot pasta, and there's this tortilla that she makes, and they were so good. I still make that beetroot pasta. I mean, it's so simple, but she's just a gem. And
Yeah,
thank you, Great British Baking Show, for putting her on your platform so the rest of the world could learn about her. She also has, I think, a couple books out. And one of them is a
it
children's
does.
book
I'm looking at
to
it.
to support children who experience anxiety. And like,
Oh,
yeah, it's just so sweet. And her family is so cute. They're so cute.
that is so cute, and
Yes.
I feel like I need to read it.
Like
My
I want to
sister.
buy the book because I know I'm gonna be able to give it to somebody's kid.
Yeah,
But I want to buy the book because I love her so much. I want to support her. But yeah, when you started talking about GBB, she was who came to mind for me. I love Nadia so much. And I love Great British Baking Show. Ah, so good.
it really is. And so and because I'm in the vein of like TV shows that are like my jam, there is a Korean show. It is a reality show.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not like a drama.
I thought you were gonna talk about Kim's Convenience. I love that show.
Oh no, but I started watching it, but I couldn't get into it a couple years back. But I will start to watch it again because Simu Liu is in it, and he's going to be in the upcoming Marvel movie, Shang
Mm-hmm.
Chi. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm gonna double back and probably start back looking at it because it does have a couple seasons out now. At the time, it was only on one season.
Oh yeah, I
So
think they've
when I
got like
started
three or
watching it,
four.
yeah, but so this show, like again, same very similar aesthetic, just like super chill. Like it's a perfect nighttime show. It is called Hyori's Bed and Breakfast.
Hmm.
It's on Netflix and it's only 2 seasons. It's not like super long,
Mm-hmm.
but it's spelled Hyori and the possessive S.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Bed and breakfast, like just very like chill TV. Like it's just like it's the perfect nighttime show to me. Like that and Great British Baking Show. Like I just turn them on, I just let them play throughout the night. I get mad because if I do it with British Baking, I miss people going home and I'm
Well,
like,
yeah,
what happened? I
that's
don't
the
know what
best.
happened.
I mean, not that that's the best part, but like
Yeah,
I watch GBB to
yeah,
critique. Like I'm at a point now where I'm critiquing people's bakes. And
yes,
so my one of my best friends and I, we watch it, not technically not together, but we'll compare notes or be
yeah,
like,
yeah,
girl, did you see who they sent home? I do not agree with this.
yeah.
Or the way she proved that was trash. She needs to like give it some time. You would think I
Not call
had
it bougie.
you would think I know what I'm talking about, but like a part of me wants to learn how to bake so bad so I can fly out
Yeah,
there and get a Hollywood handshake. I just,
yeah.
Paul Hollywood, I'm coming for you.
Oh my gosh. He is a
I
like
need my
first.
stepmom to get me in the kitchen to whip me into shape. Now that woman can bake. My
Oh yeah.
stepmom,
Auntie.
that lady can bake.
I'm just I wish I knew how. So yes, the show makes me want to bake. And then here is Bed and Breakfast again. It's like it is literally like these two celebrities who like have this like it's how their house is like secret. It's like in like Jeju Island, which is an island off of Korea, off the southern
Hmm,
coast of Korea and South Korea. And like their house like basically was like a really hot topic at the time. So
hmm.
they created a show for them. And so they have people come and stay at their house and
Nice.
like to operate it like a bed and breakfast.
I have to check
So
that
I
out.
huh.
I have to check that out.
Oh, it's super chill now. I will tell you, like, if you're looking for excitement and like stuff to be like fun and and wild and crazy, it's not that. It's
Oh,
super chill. It is just you seeing them kind of navigate, hosting people in their home, again as a bed and breakfast and kind of like figuring that out. And they in each season they have like a celebrity guest come in to be kind of like an employee for them.
mm-hmm.
So that's cool in its own way if you care about those people. But the show is just very chill. Like, and again, it's very much my aesthetic. So I think it's a self-care thing for me. It's calm and it's also entertainment because it's like,
Yeah.
you watch these people go through stuff, but in a very natural and normal way.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I always just want to go on vacation. So I like a calm scenery. I like to just see grass blowing in the breeze like for miles. I like the foothills of like freaking
What is this? The Sound of Music? What are
I
you talking
like
about,
that
homie?
that imagery is like just so calming to me.
Really?
Yeah, like I
Huh.
I'm in love with like just seeing grass and the sky be blue and like mountains and all that stuff. I don't know why. And one day I'm gonna have a house that allows me to exploit that and just see that all the time and be at peace all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So those are our favorite cousins for this week. Thank
Yes.
you all for listening to us again.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. But what I would appreciate so much more is for you to go out and take care of yourself, love on yourself, and to treat yourself with the care that you deserve and that you're looking for probably from other people.
Mm-hmm. And remember, today is Vagina Appreciation Day. So, yeah.
That it is. So go and appreciate a vagina.
Go and appreciate a vagina near you with consent.
With consent.
Or if it's yours, have at it.
Yes. All right.
Peace. Bye.
Bye, fam.
Hey, fam. Want to join in on the conversation? Have a topic suggestion? Send us your thoughts at goodblackpodcast@gmail.com. That's GOODBLACKPODCAST@gmail.com. To support us, make sure you like, subscribe, rate, leave us voice messages on Anchor, share, just do all the things across all your favorite platforms. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Good Black Podcast.